Chapter 2 of Rethinking Scoliosis, a 3,500-year-old mystery. Over 3,500 years ago, long before X-rays or operating rooms, Greek healer Hippocrates looked at a twisted spine and called it a serpent-like disease, because the bones seemed to slither sideways under the skin, and that vivid image has echoed through every era of medicine. In the warm stone courtyards of ancient Greece, his followers believed the safest plan was to use sheer force. They lashed children to stiff boards, dangled sandbags from their heads, and even had strong helpers hang from the child's arms in hopes that gravity would pull the curve straight. This traction often hurt more than it helped, yet in a world without microscopes or germ theory, a visible fix felt better than no fix at all. Roman doctors copied those methods and added their own, such as rolling patients on large barrels or pressing heated metal plates against the spine, thinking the warmth would soften bones enough to reshape them. While these tactics sometimes reduced pain for a short time, most curves returned as soon as the straps and weights came off. Still, the idea that scoliosis was a mechanical flaw took hold, and for centuries nearly every remedy stayed in that narrow lane. As centuries passed and Europe slipped into the Middle Ages, knowledge of anatomy dimmed, yet the fear of a crooked back grew. Village healers whispered that evil spirits twisted bones, and worried parents carried their children to churches where holy relics were stored, hoping a single touch from a saint's bone would straighten a living one. Barbers, who doubled as surgeons, offered crude fixes. They strapped leather belts across a child's chest, wedged wooden blocks under one shoulder, and tightened the straps day after day. Bleeding, purging, and special diets were tried too, all based on the old theory that unbalanced body humors cause disease. With no clear plan and many painful failures, children often hid their backs under layers of clothing, and families sighed that a bent spine must be God's will. The Renaissance reopened the body to careful study. Artists like Leonardo da Vinci sketched skeletons in glorious detail, and brave anatomists such as Vesalius dissected cadavers in public lecture halls, revealing that the vertebrae were separate, movable pieces, not one solid rod. Still, the mystery of why some spines bent sideways remained. French military surgeon Ambroise Paré, working on smoky battlefields, invented an iron corset with adjustable screws. It looked like a cage and weighed nearly as much as the child inside it, yet parents welcomed any hope of realignment. Paré also crafted early traction tables, where a patient's head and feet were pulled in opposite directions by ropes. These devices sometimes eased severe curves just enough to help soldiers breathe better, but they offered no lasting cure. By the 18th century, a new word entered medical talk: orthopaedia, coined by French physician Nicolas André. His famous drawing showed a crooked sapling tied to a straight stake, symbolizing how early support could guide growth. André believed that posture drills and braces made of whalebone and cloth could tame early curves, but he still had no insight into nerves, genes, or hormones. About this time, cobblers began making leather braces with metal stays, and wealthy families paid clockmakers to design spring-loaded backboards that pushed shoulders into position. These devices were uncomfortable, but they looked sophisticated, and gave doctors the sense that they were finally applying science. Industrial advances in the 19th century swapped linen for steel. American doctor Louis Sayre toured county fairs with a portable pulley frame. He wrapped a canvas sling under a child's armpits, hoisted the child until the toes dangled, and then wrapped sticky plaster bandages around the torso while the spine hung by its own weight. The cast hardened into a stiff shell. Once it dried, the child was unhooked, now locked in a standing-room-only prison that left barely enough space to breathe. Sayre claimed he prevented many surgeries, yet most children needed new casts every few months as they grew, and hidden muscle weakness often worsened. Early modern medicine of the late 19th and early 20th centuries kept refining braces, but rarely asked why the spine bent in the first place. Doctors blamed heavy school bags, poor posture, or rapid growth spurts, and parents echoed those worries at home. Children were told to sit straight, sleep on hard boards, or practice carrying books on their heads, none of which solved the hidden tug-of-war inside their bones. X-rays, invented in 1895, finally let doctors see the vertebrae alive and in motion. Yet even clear images did not reveal the real drivers lurking in genetics, hormones, and nerve control. With nothing else to try, surgeons began fusing vertebrae with metal wires and plates, trading motion for stability. Looking back, the common thread binding Hippocrates' ladder, medieval leather belts, Renaissance iron cages, and modern steel rods is the belief that scoliosis was only a mechanical flaw, like a bent sword that needed straightening on a forge. The deeper layers, genes that guide bone growth, nerves that time muscle firing, hormones that tell cells when to divide, and minerals that harden bone, remained hidden. Because doctors could not see those invisible levers, they kept pulling the only lever they knew: force. Braces stiffened, screws grew stronger, and surgeries became routine, yet the condition's root causes stayed outside the conversation. Today, scientists who map DNA, measure neurotransmitters, and track growth hormones can appreciate how small each earlier step really was, even when it looked bold. The long timeline of scoliosis care, from rope ladders to carbon fiber braces, shows that misunderstanding a problem narrows the range of solutions. It also reminds us that progress often begins with a simple observation. In this case, Hippocrates noting that a curved spine looked like a serpent, and expands whenever curious minds ask better questions. The chapter's journey through 3.5 millennia proves that calling scoliosis a mystery does not mean accepting it is unsolvable. Instead, it challenges us to replace the old serpent picture with a new one, a winding river fed by many streams. By tracing each stream, genetic, neurological, hormonal, and metabolic, we can finally understand why the river bends, and more importantly, how to steer it before it floods the banks. While Hippocrates saw only the surface, his notes lit a torch that later healers carried. Even when superstition overshadowed science, that spark kept alive the question: why does the spine bend? Wooden racks of antiquity, faith cures of the Middle Ages, iron cages of the Renaissance, and plaster jackets of the Industrial Age all grew from that curiosity. None solved the riddle, yet each left clues in dusty journals and worn medical tools, reminders that progress builds on many small steps. The next chapters will show how modern science is finally uncoiling the serpent, offering families knowledge and therapies that reach far beneath the skin to the true sources of the bend.